surrounded by Fox sisters on a warship. None of them let me leave. The Unwilling Guest. The scarlet whisper cut through the void like a crimson blade, its hull gleaming with alien metallurgy that seemed to breathe with inner fire. Elias Crane stood in the docking bay, clutching his navigation charts, wondering how a simple cartography contract had led him here. "You may not leave this vessel until our mission concludes." Commander Talira Moon's voice was silk over steel. She stood before him, tall and commanding, her rust-colored hair swept back in a warrior's braid. Her uniform hugged her form with military precision, and behind her, 3 more Vixen officers watched with unsettling focus. "Excuse me," Elias managed, his throat suddenly dry. "Our protocols are absolute," Talira continued, golden eyes unwavering. "No outsider moves freely. You will be escorted at all times." The pilot, Riven Ash, stepped forward with a playful smirk, her silver hair catching the ship's ambient light. "Don't look so terrified, cartographer. We don't bite." She paused, tail swishing. "Unless requested." Riven. Talira's single word carried enough authority to silence continents. The medic, Selene Dusk, approached with gentler energy, her amber eyes kind. "Your quarters are comfortable. You'll have everything you need." From the shadows, the weapons master Calypso Storm observed without speaking, her dark presence somehow more intense than the others' words. Elias felt their attention like physical weight, not hostile, but absolutely inescapable. When he attempted to wander toward a viewport later, Riven appeared instantly at his elbow. When he headed toward the engine deck out of curiosity, Selene materialized from a side corridor, gently redirecting him. By evening, Elias sat in his assigned quarters, simultaneously frustrated and fascinated. Through the transparent wall, he watched Talira on the command deck, her movements graceful and deliberate. When she turned, meeting his gaze across the distance, something flickered in her expression, something that looked almost like loneliness. He was surrounded, watched, contained, yet somehow Elias was beginning to suspect this cage was built as much to protect him as to confine him, and the key might be closer than he thought. The Dance of Boundaries. 3 days aboard the Scarlet Whisper taught Elias more about Vixen culture than any archive could. Meals became theater. Riven would lean close as she passed him dishes, her breath warm against his ear as she whispered exaggerated warnings about the spiced meat. "Careful, human, this might be too intense for your delicate palate." "I've eaten street food on Korvax Station," Elias replied, meeting her challenge. "I'll survive." Her laugh was genuine, delighted. "Oh, I like this one, Commander." Talira's tail flicked once. Irritation or amusement, Elias couldn't tell yet. He was learning their language of movement, the subtle communications that passed between the sisters without words. When Elias stumbled during a gravity fluctuation, cutting his hand on a console edge, Selene appeared within heartbeats. Her touch was impossibly gentle as she cleaned the wound, fingers lingering perhaps a moment longer than necessary. "You should be more careful," she murmured, and her golden eyes held something that made his pulse quicken. But it was Calypso who surprised him most. The silent weapons master began leaving things for him: a better chair in his quarters, a warmer blanket, a datapad loaded with Vixen literature. She never spoke, but once, passing in the corridor, her hand brushed his shoulder in what felt unmistakably like reassurance. Talira remained the enigma, professional, distant, yet Elias caught her watching him during his mapping work. Once, when he successfully corrected a navigation error that would have added days to their journey, he saw her lips curve in the briefest smile before her mask returned. Late in the cycle, Elias approached a sealed door, curious about the armory beyond. Before he could touch the panel, Talira's voice came from behind him. That section is restricted." He turned to find her closer than expected, close enough to see the flecks of amber in her golden eyes. "I wasn't going to enter, just observing." "That's all you ever do. Observe, calculate, map. Do you ever simply exist in a moment?" The question hung between them, charged with unexpected vulnerability. Elias noticed how her usual rigid posture had softened, how her tail curved rather than stood straight. "Do you?" he asked gently. For 3 heartbeats, Talira held his gaze. Then the ship's alarm interrupted, and the commander returned, the woman vanishing. But Elias had seen her, and that glimpse changed everything. Storm and shelter. The cosmic storm hit without warning, a maelstrom of radiation and electromagnetic chaos that sent the Scarlet Whisper into emergency protocols. Elias was in the navigation chamber when the first wave struck, throwing him against the plotting table. "Seal the chamber!" Talira's voice cracked through the comm as she burst through the door, the panel hissing shut behind her. Emergency lighting bathed everything in crimson shadow. "We're locked in until the storm passes. The hull integrity requires compartmentalization." They were alone, truly alone for the first time since Elias had boarded. The ship bucked and groaned around them, and Elias worked frantically to stabilize their trajectory, while Talira coordinated with her crew through her wrist comm. Her professional efficiency was remarkable, but Elias noticed the tremor in her hands when she thought he wasn't looking. "You're afraid of storms," he said softly during a brief calm. Talira's jaw tightened. "I've commanded this vessel through 37 campaigns. I'm not—" Another violent lurch sent her stumbling. Instinctively, Elias caught her, his arms steadying her against his chest. For a moment, she didn't pull away. Her warmth seeped through her uniform, and he felt the rapid beat of her heart. "My mother's ship was lost in a storm like this," she whispered, so quietly he almost missed it. "I was 10. I watched from a station viewport as her vessel broke apart." Elias's arms tightened fractionally. "I'm sorry." Talira finally stepped back, but her eyes remained on his. "Do you know why we guard outsiders so carefully? It's not about control, Elias. It's about trust. My people, we've been betrayed before. Humans came to our world as friends, then stole our navigation techniques, our star charts. They left us vulnerable. So you test everyone who comes aboard." "We protect ourselves," she corrected, "and we test whether someone is worth protecting in return." The lights flickered. In the darkness, Elias felt her hand find his, her fingers interlaced with his own, strong, warm, trembling slightly. "And have I passed your test, Commander?" The ship steadied, emergency power restored. In the renewed lighting, Talira looked at him with something raw and unguarded. "You're still here," she said simply. "Most would have demanded to leave by now. You stayed. You learned. You respected our boundaries even when you didn't understand them." Her thumb traced small circles on his palm, a gesture so intimate it stopped his breath. "Maybe," she continued, voice barely audible above the storm, "maybe I'm the one being tested." Moonlight Confessions. The storm had passed, leaving the Scarlet Whisper drifting through a field of luminescent nebula dust. Elias was reviewing star charts when Talira appeared at his quarters, out of uniform for the first time. She wore simple civilian clothes, a flowing tunic that softened her warrior edges. "Walk with me," she said, not a command, but an invitation. She led him through corridors he'd never seen, past the knowing smiles of Riven and Solène, beyond Calypso's approving nod. They climbed to the observation deck, a crystal dome at the ship's highest point. Above them, stars cascaded in impossible colors, nebula clouds painting the void in shades of violet and gold. "No outsider has ever been brought here," Talira said quietly, standing beside him at the viewport. "This is where we come when the weight of command becomes too heavy, where we remember why we sail the dark." Elias watched her profile, the way starlight caught in her hair. "Why did you bring me?" "Because you asked me if I ever simply exist in a moment." She turned to him fully. "The truth is, I haven't, not in years. We Vixen guard ourselves so carefully that we forget how to be vulnerable. We watch everyone else, but we don't let anyone see us." Her hand rose slowly, tentatively, until her fingertips brushed his cheek. The touch was feather-light, questioning. "My crew thinks I'm testing you, but Elias, I think you've been testing me, teaching me that not every human carries betrayal in their heart." "Talira." His hand covered hers, pressing her palm against his face. "We're a lonely people," she continued, words flowing now like a dam breaking. "We travel between worlds but belong to none. We have each other, my sisters and I, but there's an ache that companionship doesn't fill, a space meant for something else, someone else." Elias stepped closer, closing the distance between them. "You're not alone, not anymore." The ship hummed around them, a living presence. Through the viewport, he saw movement, Riven, Selene, and Calypso on a lower deck, watching but not interfering, protecting this moment rather than preventing it. "They approve," Talira said, following his gaze. A soft laugh escaped her. "Riven bet me 3 shifts ago that you'd kiss me before mission's end. Selene said you were different the moment you arrived. Even Calypso left you gifts, which she's never done." "And what did you say?" Talira's eyes met his, golden and infinite. "I said I hoped they were right. I said I was terrified they were right." Her other hand rose to his chest, feeling his heartbeat. "Because if you leave when this mission ends, if you walk away, it will hurt in ways I've spent years learning to avoid." Elias covered her hand with his own. "Then ask me to stay." "I can't. It wouldn't be fair. Your life is out there, charting new worlds, free to—" He silenced her with a kiss to her forehead, gentle and reverent. "Talira, ask me." She trembled against him, this powerful commander reduced to a woman balancing on the edge of hope and fear. "Stay," she whispered. "Please, stay with us, with me." The stars wheeled overhead. The ship sailed on, and in that crystalline moment, Elias felt every map he'd ever drawn become irrelevant, every destination meaningless compared to the one he'd found here, surrounded by guardians who'd become family, held by a woman who'd become everything. "Yes," he breathed against her hair. "Yes." The choice to stay. Morning found the Scarlet Whisper approaching the designated drop point, a space station where Elias's contract officially ended. The crew moved with practiced efficiency, but an unusual tension filled the corridors. Riven was uncharacteristically quiet. Selene kept finding reasons to pass by Elias's quarters. Even Calypso lingered in doorways, watching. Talira maintained her commander's mask, professional and distant as she oversaw docking procedures. But Elias had learned to read the language of her tail, the way it curled tight against her body, betraying the emotion she refused to show. His packed belongings sat by the airlock. Standard protocol dictated he disembark, collect his payment, move to the next contract. His old life waited beyond that door, familiar, safe, solitary. The docking clamps engaged with a metallic thud that echoed like a death knell. "Well, cartographer," Riven said, attempting her usual playfulness and failing. "It's been entertaining. Try not to get lost out there without us." Selene pressed a small medical kit into his hands. "In case you need it, remember to change bandages properly." Calypso approached last, and for the first time since he'd boarded, she spoke. "You were worthy." 2 words, but they carried the weight of acceptance he hadn't known he needed. The airlock doors opened. Station air mixed with ship atmosphere. Elias picked up his bag, walked to the threshold, and stopped. Beyond lay infinity, 1,000 worlds, 1,000,000 maps yet to draw. Behind him stood the Scarlet Whisper, 4 Vixen warriors, and the woman who'd shown him that some territories couldn't be charted, only felt. He thought of Talira's hand in his during the storm, her vulnerability in the starlight, the way she'd whispered "stay" like a prayer. Elias set down his bag, turned around, met Talira's widening eyes. "I'm told," he said clearly, "that your protocols require outsiders to earn full trust before moving freely. How does one apply for permanent crew status?" The corridor went silent. Riven's jaw dropped. Selene's hand flew to her mouth, Calypso's lips curved in the faintest smile. Talira stood frozen, commander and woman warring visibly across her features. Then her mask shattered completely, and she crossed the space between them in 3 strides. Their kiss was soft at first, a question and answer merged, then deeper, sweeter, carrying weeks of careful boundaries finally, willingly crossed. Her arms wrapped around him, and he held her like she was the only star chart he'd ever need. Around them, the crew erupted. Riven whooped loud enough to echo through 3 decks. Selene wiped tears from her eyes. Calypso simply nodded, satisfied. When they finally broke apart, Talira pressed her forehead to his. "You choose this? Choose us? The regulations, the protocols, the constant togetherness?" "I choose you," Elias corrected. "The rest is just navigation." She laughed, a sound of pure joy he'd never heard from her. "Then welcome aboard, Elias Crane, permanently." The airlock closed. The Scarlet Whisper detached from station, engines humming to life. As they sailed into the luminous void, Elias stood on the command deck beside his commander, his partner, surrounded by the sisters who'd become his family. He'd come aboard a prisoner. He left as something far more precious. Chosen, trusted, home. Lessons from the Scarlet Whisper. Trust cannot be demanded, only demonstrated through patience, respect, and the courage to remain when leaving would be easier. The strongest boundaries exist not to keep others out, but to ensure that those who enter truly belong and will honor what lies within.